Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace. Lately, I've been enjoying chopping up my minis. So today we're going to go over the basics of kit bashing so all your models can be truly unique, just like you. Swapping out just a few details on your miniature, like a head or a weapon or a cloak, can make such a massive difference. And there's something super satisfying about knowing that our Warhammer hero or our D&D character model is completely unique from everyone else's. And of course we can make our models unique with how we choose to paint them. But one thing I've always found is that my standard Necromancer model tends to sit on the shelf when I have the option to use the cool one that I made out of an old High Elf model and some spare Nighthaunt bits. The mini that I currently use for my D&D character works just fine and I like how he's painted, but that character is on a quest to learn how to craft his own impressive plate armor, so it's time to build a more accurate, badass version that I can also use in my Warcry warband. The first thing we need to do is find a base model to build off of for our character. We just need this model to be something that excites us and it looks cool. It doesn't need to have all the exact details that we want the final character to have. Details like the head, the weapons, maybe a lack of a cloak, or even all the extra doodads that the model has on it. Try to ignore all of these. We'll be able to change those things later and add, remove, or alter those as we need. For today's build, I'm looking for a female in plate armor. You're just gonna have to let me explain.
Oh god, he's gonna talk about his D&D character, isn't he?
The TLDR version is my character has tracked down a master armorsmith who is specialized in a very specific magical set of plate armor. And my character is going to study under them in hopes to be able to craft his very own set of this specialized plate. The catch is, this armor is made for a very specific set of elite warriors, and everyone in that warrior troop is a female. Not that female plate armor historically looks any different than males, but that doesn't stop miniature designers from making sure you can tell that there's boobs under there. I've decided that the Yndrasta model is a great base for my new character. Her pose is striking, her armor is elegant without being stupidly sexualized, and I'm not going to use her cool angel wings in the build, so I'll have those for a later kit bash as well. I'm going to take her off of the sprue and clean up all the bits. She does have some of her parts attached to these big sections of the base like this tree and the ruins, but with a little patience, a sharp hobby knife, and a small hobby saw, we can get her cleanly removed. Now, if you're not careful, you can make a big mistake right here. Don't assemble the model at all. It's so much easier for us to remove sections we're not going to use and clean things up and add things now compared to when we put it all together at the end. She's got this big, crazy, religious looking thing coming out from behind the back of her head, and I'm going to remove part of that and see what it looks like before I decide to remove it all or just keep some of it attached. I'm also going to give her a complete head swap and switch out both of her weapons. Here's the part of the video where I give you the not so subliminal message to subscribe to the channel. Slid that right in there. Now we get to the fun part of digging through all of my leftover bits from other kits and try to find just the right bits for this model. But when I'm doing this, I'm keeping my mind open because you never know when you're looking when you might spark your imagination. And that might come from a hanging zombie, a cow, some burbs, or a sack of halflings. I'll often find some wild bits that I hadn't even considered for a build like this, and when I do that, it's just fine for it to go in some wild direction you hadn't planned for. The thing that usually stops people from experimenting with customizing their models is they think they don't have enough extra bits lying around to really do anything cool. But what I suggest you do is look through the other kits you have that aren't even built yet. There'll be some awesome parts that you're never going to use, or if you did need that for that model, well, it's just an excuse for you to customize that one as well. Most models, it's pretty easy to swap in and out ahead if you decide to use this one or that one instead. And if you did use a bit, like maybe the only set of legs that that model has, well, that just means you've got a legless torso to use as base decoration later. You can always 3D print some awesome bits for uses in your kit bashes as well without having to use something from existing kits. Also, there are companies out there that make awesome third-party bits that just sell that, and you can save a bunch of money by not having to buy whole kits to pull from. The head swap is the most common and often most impactful change you can make to a model. I like to use a tiny ball of green stuff where the head and the neck meet so you don't end up with a neckless model, and so you can hide the joins between those two pieces. Some cheap dental tools and some clay shapers are amazing investments for kit bashing, and I'll put links to the ones that I use below. I also like to use a little bit of Vaseline on all of my tools before I use them to keep them from sticking to the green stuff. My character uses a bastard sword and shield, so I'll be swapping those out as well. Now the sword that Yndrasta is wielding is a little bit ridiculous and chunky, so I'm going to look for other options. This Lumineth Elfie sword is a much better fit for my vision, and when attaching a new weapon, the most important thing is that it's perfectly level so it doesn't appear bent or wobbly in any way. I found that homemade Sprue goo is the best way to get this job done. As it's drying, you can actually slowly push the blade to exactly the angle that you want so it's nice and level. And if you don't know what this stuff is or how to make your own at home, check the video out here and I show you exactly how to do it. Once I have this first set of alterations complete, I'm going to start putting the model together and see what else needs to be done as I go. When you start adding bits from different models or factions, there will often be iconography like Dwarven runes or Elven script. I've got that going on with this model right here, and so you can choose to shave those things off or fill in the gaps to remove them to make your model feel more unified. Or you can just leave them as is, because last I checked, there's not a law that says a human man wearing female plate armor can't wield an elven sword. Now we're looking pretty good, but we've got the issue of this giant empty space in the back where the wings would usually attach. I guess I didn't really think that part through. Well, that's fine. There's no reason to freak out here. What we'll do is just look for a different bit that roughly looks like it fits in that hole. What I ended up finding was some leg armor for a skeleton horse, and it's roughly the right size and shape, and I'll just trim it back with my hobby knife until it fits just right. I'll then fill the hole in the back with a big bit of green stuff, and I'll kind of sculpt that to the right shape, push in my armor, and it kind of looks like it was supposed to be there the whole time. And this is why I never throw out extra bits, because you never know when your Dead Horse Trixie's thigh pads are going to have a second lease on life. Now the last thing you want to do is phone it in on the base after you spent all that time making a cool custom model, especially if they've got a unique pose. You want them to look like they'd fit perfectly right into their environment. I've officially found the true value of owning a 3D printer with all these super cool basing bits you can print. Maybe you guys aren't as excited about this as I am, but I found it really increases the wow factor on my bases without having to spend hours in building them. Now there's a number of companies that make really cool little basing bits you can 3D print. These ones are from Epic Basing, and I really like the variety and quality. And if you don't have a 3D printer, you can actually just order them directly on their website and they'll just mail them to you. For this base, the important thing is that I have one larger rock for the right leg of the model to be posted on, and it's just the right height. And besides that, I can't help to put a cute little plant right on there as well. I put a little green stuff around the edges of these basing bits so they have a nice smooth transition between the rocks and the texture paste we're about to put on next. You really don't need to do this green stuff step if there are some cracks where your rocks and stuff meet the base. You're never going to be able to see that once that texture paste is on there. But I had some green stuff that was sitting there still pliable, and I thought, oh hey, I might as well use it before it all dries up, and it was mostly just a waste of time. One little tip for using texture paste is it's okay if you make a little bit of a mess and you get some of that paste on areas of the rocks or even the feet of your model while you're applying it. Just come back through with a clean, damp brush over any of the areas where the paste got where you didn't want it to go. Just make sure you do it before the paste starts to fully dry. This way you'll have a nice, clean, crisp base that it looks like you spent hours sculpting. The final step is to glue our model to the base, and don't worry about pinning any legs down unless it's a metal model. I just like to use a gel super glue. This stuff is super strong and our model won't be going anywhere. And just like that, we've got a custom model for whatever game we want, and nobody else in the world has one just like it. I hope this shows you how easy this is to do And it really is super rewarding. I find that the models that I customize to be my own are the ones I'm most excited to paint. And that's really a factor we shouldn't ignore. Whatever aspect of the hobby energizes you to sit down at your desk at a regular basis is a wonderful thing you should tap into. And finishing this model has got my brain juices flowing. Just what would the rest of this war cry warband look like? Let's try it in the Conan narrator voice.
A savage warband of wasteland warriors that scavenge the armor and weapons of their foes.
So what do you think? Should I customize the rest of a Warcry warband and paint them up for a future video? Let me know down in the comments. And thanks for hanging out for the entirety of this video. It means a lot. If you want to support me in making more videos, the best way you can do that is to check out the Patreon link below and see the cool rewards you get for joining us over at the Ninjan Dojo. I'm going to see you back here again real soon. And sometime between now and then, make sure you find time in your day to slay the gray. Today's video is sponsored by Squarespace, and I just recently started my own website using Squarespace, and it was incredibly easy to set up. Not only is having your own website great for showcasing your hobby or your interests, you can also create members-only content, and you can manage those members. You can send them emails letting them know about updates. They can know whenever you post a new tutorial or blog. Everything is easy to use on one platform. So head on over to squarespace.com for your free trial. And then when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ninjan for 10% off your purchase of a website or domain. A big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Or a sack of halflings.
A savage warband. A savage war...
Been wearing this Band-Aid the whole time? Nobody told me?